In philosophy, we have been thinking about the idea of a good life for centuries. Um, so even the old Greeks already thought about what is a good life. You remember maybe some of it about the Stoics. The other thing is when we think about what we probably expect from the next years and the next decades, the circumstances might and will, I think, change significantly. So what we call a good life today might look quite differently in a few years. And so when the circumstances change, probably we will also have to change our idea of a good life. So therefore, the new good life. The other thing is a friend of mine shared with me that his understanding of the new good life is that a good life is new again and again. And I like this notion quite a lot. I've been working with spiral dynamics, the works of Keegan, Krugereuter, Wilber, Löwinger, Bill Torbert for many years now, and there is a lot of truth in them. So people are different, people grow, and of course, not all differences are questions of growth, but of type first. So a birch tree doesn't become a fir tree when it's big, as well as that people do not become different type when they're older. However, um, we can see that there is some kind of maturation, that there is some kind of higher, especially in the question of socio-emotional and cognitive development. I have some caveats about the role of spiral dynamics when we talk about values and higher values and lower values, because you get in all kinds of political and philosophical discussions whether this is really a vertical development or if these are different flavors or types or states of persons, of systems. Coming back to the question why I used it. So I'm using it as a scaffolding to make sure that these seemingly lower levels are still integrated, that they are still there, that we kind of honor them and we continue to kind of make sure that there is an inflow from this energy. And the colors of spiral dynamics are really a nice scaffolding, I think, to make sure that this is represented. As I just mentioned, if we only integrate the question of colors or elements, it can be tricky to make sure that you still think about types, the different types of people, but also really different types of organizations. So um, money-making company is quite different from a governmental body or a school or whatever you see. So there are different types of organizations, but I think we can also speak about different types of cultures. So to compare, I don't know, Western culture with Chinese or Indian culture, really, well, that these are different types first, and we need to make sure that we understand the special flavor. So this is one aspect, the question of type. There is another aspect which we need to make sure to take account for. These are the different quadrants of Wilber, so that we see the soft aspects and the hard aspects, so structures and behavior, and not just subjective questions of culture and individual consciousness. And of course, then we have states, so different states of persons, of systems, of cultures, etc. And I really hope that we do not use the aspect of elements to really simplify everything and say, oh, now we can kind of explain everything and heal everything just by using some elements. So these are really scaffolding blocks for enabled discourse together. Well, the problem with me is that I'm always producing even more complexity. So I'm bringing in one more model and another concept, because for me that makes it more complete. But I learned the hard way that many people need to start at a more basic level to come to an understanding first, and then gradually enhancing complexity. So, of course, I'm really convinced that Rob and his team that they're making a wonderful job by kind of condensing or simplifying some of the New Good Life concepts. What I'm adding, maybe in comparison to what he's doing, is I'm adding the questions of different lines. So about cognitive line, the social emotional line, the spiritual line, and also some aspects of connections. For example, I'm talking about a fourfold connection, connection with myself, with others, with nature, with the higher. And there are some other aspects that I see as helpful or making the whole more complete. But again, I think this is wonderful groundwork and a good basis for exploring. Being overwhelmed is not a good state, right? So it's something that we would call a panic zone experience in comparison to comfort zone or growth zone. So where we want to be, at least again and again, is the growth zone, where we learn something, where we are open, where we are aware and awake. So when we look, for example, at all the different shadows that are looming, um, it's easy to be overwhelmed, at least at first. And we have another experience as well. We have people who look at it and become very cynical and say, okay, I'm living in the moment. I don't care about the future. I don't have kids, maybe. So why care? And if circumstances go really wild, I'll just suicide myself. So how can we avoid being totally overwhelmed and then shy away and look somewhere else? Or how can we avoid becoming cynical? And my assumption at the moment is that there is the tendency to kind of reduce the amount of information that we take in. So to say, I just can't handle it. I need to focus on the present, which is a healthy approach probably. But if we are some kind of responsibility for a system, at least for our family, maybe for an organization, then it's, I would say, wise to look into the future and to see what's coming. And my experience is that we need to have some kind of connection to ourselves and to others, to nature, or some kind of higher. So a connection that goes deeper so that we do not become overwhelmed, so that we experience our essence, our being is deeper and cannot be changed by outside circumstances. So some kind of grounding, and probably like in a good diving experience, you ground yourself, you secure yourself with oxygen, etc., before you do the diving. So how can we make sure that we have good grounding before we dive into shadows, for example?